Welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast. We are glad you're with us. What is it like to become a pilot in your 40s and 50s? The challenges are unique for those of us in midlife, but so are the rewards. Hosts Ben, Brian, and Ted talk learning to fly, growing as pilots, and the joy of flying to destinations. The purpose of the podcast is not to teach, but to share knowledge and experiences of being a midlife pilot. Join the Midlife Pilot community and listen in every week. We are not CFIs or particularly intelligent, so if you want to learn how to fly, talk to anyone else other than the hosts of a podcast. Even this intro was too challenging for us, and we used a robot to do it. Okay, checklists are complete. Let's get the show started.
Hey there, and welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast, where we share the experiences and challenges of flying in midlife. Whether you're a seasoned pilot, trained for private or instrument, training for private or instrument, or just even thinking about getting started in aviation, we like to think of this podcast as your aviation companion, or even maybe your weekly dose of aviation inspiration. Maybe it's inspiration to do something that we don't do. Whatever it may be, we're glad you're here. My name's Ben. I am a pilot in the metro Atlanta area, with a commercial certificate with an IFR rating. I like to fly my 182, we like to call the Beast. Got a lot of trips coming up soon. Tonight with us, we have Mr. Brian Siskin, private pilot in Nashville, home of the Bachelorette Super Charlie. He flies his Cherokee 180. He likes to call Lucy. Hello, sir.
Hello, everybody. This is super exciting to be back. I'm sorry I missed last week, and I know that it was just incredibly, a sad occasion that I made it back. I was so close. I actually had landed, but I just couldn't get to a microphone quite fast enough. So I got to join the live chat. It was nice to be on the outside looking in for a minute. I enjoyed it. You guys did great.
Thank you very much. Also joining us from the West Coast, sport pilot based in Portlandia. He flies a Flight Design CTLS. We like to call the Egg. Good evening, sir. Ted, how you doing?
Hey, doing well. Nice to be here.
Nice. Tonight we've got a really interesting show, I think. A couple of announcements that we wanted to let everybody know about. We're going to be broadcasting our 100th episode on Monday, October 21st. Put it on your calendars. We will be broadcasting live from 4 Golf 7. And if you don't have that airport memorized by heart, that's Fairmont Airport in Fairmont, West Virginia.
Hey, let me break in just for a minute here. That would be October 28th.
What did I say?
You said 21st.
Oh,
it is the 28th.
It is the 28th?
It is?
Calendars are hard. Yes.
Yes. And, just like Ron Burgundy, if it's on the script, that's exactly how I'm going to read it.
I need to check my personal calendar now.
Yes, you do.
Jeez.
So the 28th. Sorry about that. Thank you, Ted, for catching that. So Fairmont, West Virginia, if that name rings a bell, that's because it's the base camp of the OG midlife pilot, Mr. Chris Moran. We will be broadcasting. All three of us, including Chris, will make it 4. I'm assuming Brian's calendar is still going to be clear. But we'll be broadcasting there. We'd love for people to join us, but this is not an official meetup per se. But if you're in that area and want to come by and say hi, we'd love to see you.
Well, by the way, I just want to also say real quick that I did speak with the OG midlife pilot, Chris Moran, yesterday. And, let's just say he's got a background in production and does a lot of that work. And he is, let's just say, whatever happens when we're there, it is going to be top notch. We are going to have, I think he's going to be running a switcher, but also joining us. Like, it's going to be crazy. I'm super excited about it. And it's, I don't know, it's very full circle for us to be with him and all of you guys together on that day. I can't wait. Whatever day it is, but I'm looking forward to it.
This will be the first podcast where we're actually all in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
All 3 and 4 of us, for that matter. So yeah, I think that's a very fitting for the situation.
No Speedos allowed.
Hey, Brian, did you guys ever record in the same room?
No.
Okay. So the one that happened was Ben and I, with the 3 of us, on a podcast. So that's like the only time that literally two heads have been in the same room and we haven't done everything from the same room. That's kind of wild.
That's why I expect everything to just either go very well or very terribly.
Yes.
Maybe we'll put like I said, we talked about this last time, right? Like put dividers between us and then treat it like it's the dating game.
Yes.
But anyway, Hollywood Squares, I don't know. But
Bachelorette #1.
Yes. it'll be good. It's gonna be fun to hang out with you guys. We're gonna do some good flying when we're up there. And I don't know. So yeah, if anybody makes it out, hey, we'll be there.
And let me reiterate, October 28th, 2024.
Yes.
Is the date of the 100th.
And to be clear, if you're thinking about coming, if you're planning on coming, consider this a mandatory RSVP event. We do need to know kind of what to expect for people that are coming. So it'd be good. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
One of our listeners, Douglas Fortney has asked, is it the same time? Yes, we will be recording at 8:00 Eastern, as we usually do on Monday nights. So, Brian, did you have something else?
I'm sure I did, but I don't recall what it was.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about Patreon and the website?
Yeah, someone do some housekeeping here.
Stuff.
Quick housekeeping for everybody. We would like to thank our listeners for making this the best pilot community that we know of. It's a positive, encouraging, supportive place where we talk about everything from training to bad radio calls, sharing personal minimums to keep each other accountable, and the challenges of plane ownership and offering feedback on flight plans and arranging meetups. Everything's happening in this community. It's fantastic. Basically, it's a goldmine of experience and camaraderie, not just about flying, but growing as midlife pilots. So we want you guys to know, if who is listening and not already a member, that there's a lot of ways to engage with us and with the community. You can support us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month, which is 25 cents per episode. You can mail quarters, I guess, if you want. You can support the podcast and join the community on Discord. We will get you'll get access to miles of bonus content, including check ride debriefs with community members, stories of challenging flight experiences, and much more. Also important to remind everybody, 10% of the proceeds of all of our Patreon are donated to the Freedom Aviation Network, who works with volunteer pilots to provide safe, efficient, and rapid air transportation for survivors of human trafficking and their advocates. They are based here in Nashville, and actually they have a big event this week. You can go to their website and learn more about it. Also, you can subscribe to us, our YouTube channel here, where you're watching this live stream if you happen to be doing that. So if you're audio listening, come over to YouTube and join the live chat. We're doing that on Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern, and be a part of it. Also, reminder, send us feedback. We love hearing from listeners with good insights and stories, and you can write us or send a voice memo or, leave a bag of poop on Ben's front porch, whatever it is. We like all the feedback, and you can send those things to either Ben's front porch or midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. We respond to every message eventually, and you might even hear yourself or us reading your words on a future episode. So to join the community, give feedback, get merch, all the things, visit midlifepilotpodcast.com.
That's excellent. We have a lot going on in the community, and we posted to Patreon whenever there's something that kind of an extra from the podcast that we want to share, but not quite as widely. So we finally posted Sridhar's check ride debrief. Did that a couple weeks ago and finally posted it this week. Also, about a week and a half ago, we posted an extra from one of Ben's flights. So try to put that stuff up whenever we've got it. There's no real routine to it or anything else. But yeah, we've got that stuff. On Discord, there's been a lot going on. I caught up while I was gone, and there's a bunch in there about maintaining flight currency. And my friend Nathan, Mr. Cheapskate, is out of currency to carry passengers. So, lots of those discussions, some talk about flight following and about flying dogs. So there's some things that came up in one of the channels.
Flying dogs.
So we got people that have dogs that have wings.
Yes.
Wow.
The dogs are flying in some way. We are not going to ask if they're certificated or if they have a license. That's not.
Listen, as long as they got a transponder, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'd like to thank, we've got a couple new members this week. At the Hershey Bar level, I want to welcome back Teddy H, not to be confused with myself. And also at the Hershey Bar level, we have Zach M. So thanks for you new arrivals.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for joining. I do want to say I like attending the flight check ride debriefs. Streethards was like full. All the seats were full. And I went back and watched it, and it is really, there's such a difference between from one person to the next. And each one of them, I feel like I pick up something a little bit different. So even as someone that has a little bit more experience than others in the Discord, I still feel like I pick up on some stuff. So
Yeah.
I think it's a really valuable resource.
Not to mention, I just think that he's such an interesting character and with an interesting life.
Yes.
And that's what I enjoy the most, is really getting a sense of how widely varied people's existence is, that is all common around this effort to be midlife pilots, and to see how perhaps their professions or how they live informs their point of view about a check ride or about their flying. And it's that kind of nuance, I think, that really, like I was saying, the community is like nothing else. I think it's because there's so much room for that. So anyway, fantastic. Definitely check out that debrief. Yeah,
definitely. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about checklists and flows and just different aspects of it. Newer pilots, newer airplanes, experienced pilots, when to use one, when to use the other. But before we get into it, Mr. Siskin has taken a really long trip. And if you follow Brian on Instagram, you will be in for a treat if you don't, because there are some pretty amazing photos. I've saved a bunch of them. They're amazing. I can't say anything else more about it. But
thanks.
Ted and I have been anxiously awaiting to hear about this trip out to Marfa, Texas. And for the audio listeners, maybe you can give them an idea, where exactly is Marfa? If they're driving in the car, they don't have Google Maps in front of them. Where exactly did you go?
Yeah. And actually, what's great too, I think, about this as a pretext is that it's my second time now going out there. It's Marfa, Texas is far, far west Texas, pretty close to Mexico. It's probably about 3 hours southeast of El Paso. There's not a lot out there. There's no highway, and what I think is special about that place, it's a town of 1,700, and it's just one of those places where if you're there, you mean to be there. There's an intentionality there that is, I think, really special, and it brings in a particular type of character, and there's a lot of, I don't know, a lot of artists and a lot of just really interesting people. It's definitely a bit of a haul to get out there. So from Nashville, it's about 1,000 miles, I guess. And the last time I did it, around the same time of year, this time of year, last time though, it was 100 degrees. It was pretty hot, and Marfa's in the high desert, so the density altitude definitely can get up into the 8,000-9,000 pretty easily. Even in first thing in the morning, it's 6,000, 6,500.
Wow.
So this it feels, for those that are not, like, for me, I'm not a desert person. I've never lived in the desert, so whenever I've been out there, it feels like I'm on the moon or something. I just love, and I think that's part of what drove me to go out there in the first place. Not that I always just wanted to go there, but on top of that, it's one of the greatest things I think about being able to fly an airplane is you get to visit terrain and environments with much more ease, and you get to see the continuum of how those things change. And so it's just really fascinating. So anyway, I made this a pretty quick trip. I left on last Friday, and I flew from here to
Pine Bluff, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I went to Pine Bluff. And by the
I have
way,
to stop you there because
what?
Your experience at Pine Bluff was starkly different, sounds like, than mine.
Oh man, it was like, is this place open? Like there was not a soul there. And
was it open? Was the diner open?
Nothing was open. Not even the FBO.
Wow.
It was, I honestly I was like, did I miss X's or something? Like there's a lot of construction and I don't know. I mean, it was weird. I was like, well, I guess I'm not doing anything here, but that's fine. I needed to get going anyway. So I went on from Pine Bluff to McKinney, Texas, which I'd flown into before. And so that was kind of a known good spot, which by the way, for those of you who are new to maybe longer trips or looking to start taking longer trips, one of the things, Pine Bluff was sort of an anomaly for me on this kind of a trip. I just wanted to go see that place to see what was going on. But ultimately, I hit deltas. That's what I do. After being stuck one time, some place where there was no services, I now plan my trips around Delta airports. So anyway, went into McKinney and everything was cool there. Saw a friend, stayed overnight, took my friend up in the morning and gave her first, general aviation experience right around sunrise. Quick little spin there before I kind of dropped her back off. And
did you make her jump?
No, I stopped and
Nice.
Hit the road. Went on from McKinney to San Angelo, and San Angelo is the last Delta before Marfa. And Marfa is one of those places where I don't know. You can't really trust any information once you're getting that remote. And so I just plan on, so San Angelo is about an hour and 30, 40 minutes. I make sure I fill up there so that I have enough, even though there's other small little airports, maybe around Marfa, there's Fort Stockton, there's Alpine, there's a couple other places, but in my mind, I just pretend that there's no fuel anywhere.
Right.
And so I have enough to go there and then I can still be there and everything, but know that I can get back to a place with services and have enough fuel to do that and not be gambling with anything. So very high fuel reserve requirements. I stopped, did a quick turn in San Angelo. If you stop there, by the way, they do have homemade cookies. Very good. Anyway, went on into Marfa and you'll see this on an upcoming video that I'll make of all of this. But one experience I had when I was coming in was, so the last time I was there, by the way, there was nobody there. I mean, not a soul, not a plane, not a nothing. Like, again, it was like ghost town. This time there was, the fellow that kind of runs the airport. He was around. And when I was on base to final, he calls me up over the CTAF and it's like, hey, so do you need fuel or are you staying here or, all that? And I said, yeah, I'll be there. I'll be here for a couple days. And I'm just trying to concentrate base to final, and it's pretty gusty.
Landing the airplane.
And he starts talking to me again. And, I just said, yeah, yes. I'll be getting fuel too. But I said, I'm just going to concentrate on landing and then I'll talk to you on the ground. and then got in, had a really fun crosswind landing coming in and, that went really well. And everything was great. Landed. And it was such a neat thing because my friends that I met there at the airport were people that I met there last year. So last year when I went there by myself, knowing no one or had no context, anything. These are people that I met randomly when I was there and we became friends. And then, so they greeted me this time, so it's like and this is one of those things where, again, it's, general aviation, what a cool thing, right? Like it allows you to just pick a random remote place and just start building, relationships with people there and explore it and all that.
What are the percentage chances that you would have ever met these people in any other way if you had not learned? It would have been 0%.
0%, yes. And so, so I had a great time in Marfa. I had some of the best. I had the best sandwich that I've ever had in my entire life. There's a place there called Bordeaux, Bordo, and they have a sandwich called the Casciola. And I will tell you right now, spend $1,000 to get there if you have to. It is worth it just for that. Absolutely amazing. So anyway, I had a great time and everything was cool. No problems, no hassles.
You had great weather, didn't you?
Great weather. When I was going out there, I definitely had some. Okay, well, I'll tell you this real quick. I don't want to talk about this whole podcast, but when I was coming into Marfa, as the terrain starts to be a factor, I'm looking at. There's no weather reporting at Marfa, but nearby Alpine and some other places were reporting all of a sudden marginal VFR and ceilings were, and I was like, "Whoo!" And this was a perfect example of, I've got plenty of fuel. If I need to go all the way back to wherever I've got like 4 outs. And also let me just see what's actually going on, because I just didn't really fully trust what the reporting was. And the ceilings were really actually around 6,500, which still is a concern in the terrain and all that. But in terms of where I needed to go, it was not a problem at all. And then by the time I got to actually where I was going, it was 100% fine. So another one of those kind of things where early on, I would have not had the confidence. I would have kind of freaked out probably just at the sight of anything other than straight up VFR, and to see marginal mountains. Oh no, which is fair to be concerned about, obviously. But like I said, I had a bunch of outs. I was like, well, I'll just go see what's going on. I'm not sure. I'm able to take now, I think, more contextual clues from weather and weave them more intuitively together, perhaps, than maybe what I was able to before. So, and have a little bit more faith in just my abilities. So anyway, it was a little bit interesting getting there, but nothing bad. Yes, the weather was great the whole time I was there. And then I'll just tell you real quick that the flight on while I was there, by the way, I took my friends up. They'd never been in a small plane before. They live obviously in Marfa, but they'd never seen it from the air like that. And so taking them up, and we flew down to Big Bend National Park, 5 nautical miles from the Mexican border down there.
Right.
And circled around Big Bend and saw these craters and just all this mountains. And, it's just unbelievable. Nothing on FlightAware showed up whatsoever. There is not a ground station absolutely anywhere. It's like that flight never happened, and there was absolutely no way to get any kind of flight following. It was, a little concerning, I suppose, in that way, but I did that.
When you're looking out the window and seeing what you're seeing, you really don't think about what happens if I lose an engine right now.
That's not true. I was thinking about it the whole time. And what was cool is that they actually knew, they were helping me. I was explaining to them, I want to stay near, there are some roads, they're, kind of small state highway type of roads at best, that I followed down. Like I basically had to be really mindful of any kind of road that I can be near, to try and do that. And I didn't do like canyon flying, right? Like I was,
right.
I had kept as much altitude. I think we were at 9,500 the whole time around there, which is more than enough altitude for clearing what I was around, but I wanted to have as much time and options as possible. So, but it was fun. And, they had a great time, came back, everything was cool. I will say, by the way, the density altitude takeoff with 2 people in the plane and fuel.
I wanted to ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll just tell you this real quick. I had my first, this is again why I think filming is so valuable. And the thing is I barely filmed a lot of this stuff, but I happened to film the takeoff from a tail camera. It's the only time I used a tail camera the whole time was that flight. And when we were taking off, okay, a little context sidebar here. When I did skydiving, they say, pull your chute, count to 5. If you count to 5 and your chute hasn't opened, you need to look and start looking at what's going on and see what you got. And the first time I jumped out, free fall on my own, I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and looking, right. This situation, the density altitude was, pretty good, pretty happening. And, the lethargy of the plane and the length of the takeoff. I did all the calculations and everything. I was prepared in terms of the fact of what was going to be happening and knew that I had margin, plenty of margin. All that being said, when we were on the roll, it's you're so used to being pretty much already off by 1,000 footers or not long after, and I had my abort point. I had everything very well planned out, but I was, and what is it that they say, like 50% of rotation speed, or no, 70% of rotation speed by the halfway point, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you something. If you're at 70% of rotation speed by halfway point, it's not looking good, man. You know what I mean? I was at, 87% of rotation speed at, that point, or maybe 90, 95, but it felt like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was like, you're seeing, I don't know. It's like, we've been on the runway for a while, it amplifies and it makes you want to force the plane up, which I was very conscious of not doing.
Right.
And, just barely, it's going to fly. It's going to fly. But the way that it looked to me, it felt like that we took off, that we rotated at about the far end 1,000 footers, right? Yeah. That's what it felt like. And I stayed cool. I definitely was like it was on my mind, but it was fine. It was,
Have you checked the camera footage yet?
Yeah. So here's the thing. So when I was, so after we landed and all of that, my buddy, he was like, I think I had a spidey sense that you were a little concerned about the the rollout, and that might have been a little longer than what you're used to. And I was like, yeah, your spidey sense would be correct. Everything was fine. We were not on some edge, right? But it was different, real different. And yes, so then I immediately was so curious about where we actually, and it was actually exactly where I calculate. Everything happened exactly what I thought would happen. It's just that the point of view you have from in the airplane, where you're losing, a lot of what's right. I don't know. It just looked different, man. It just looked different. It's like, come on. So anyway, it was a little unnerving, I would say. But I trusted the margins that I had, built in to, I don't trust performance calculations on their own. And I definitely, and it was an interesting dilemma, because I didn't want to have full fuel and 2 passengers.
Yeah.
Right.
But I did, because it worked out in terms of the numbers, and it also was where we are going. There's a couple of dirt strips and, whatever, but I don't know what the situation's going to be in the winds and how crazy it is, or what's closed, or I don't, we're going to no man's land. So it was like, I just was weighing out the premium of having an incredibly high fuel reserve while also meeting the mission. So it worked out fine. It was totally fine. But it was definitely, as much as I've experienced the density altitude there now, I had never been a little heavy. And I wasn't, pushing heavy, like in terms of like, but it was definitely not me by myself in the plane. So
yeah.
Anyway, very cool experience. And then when I flew back, I got out to the airport before sunrise, got everything all prepped and ready, took off as soon as first light hit, and I could see the backlit mountains so that I could see where I was going. And I took off out of there, got to San Angelo. Went to from there to Greenville, Texas. Flew through the DFW Bravo.
Right.
I did that both ways, actually. And so that was fun. It's like, oh yeah, watch out for the Dreamliner, and that kind of thing. It was, I even told the controller, he kind of thanked me for, I don't know, being sort of helpful or complicit or whatever. Yeah. And I was like, dude, this is fun. Like, this is great. Thanks, man. Like, that was a blast. Landed at Greenville, Texas, then went
somewhere
to
in Memphis.
Yeah. Went to Memphis from there, went through that Bravo both ways.
Yep.
And then on back to Nashville, landed at sunset, and everything was cool. I mean, it was just it was I don't know, the tack time was about 22 hours of tack time. It was a lot of hours in 4 days,
Yeah.
but, I didn't feel it too badly, and that was the thing is the last time I went there, I just felt like I had done the most Herculean kind of thing. And it's amazing how your threshold for this stuff really builds up. So anyway, that's enough on that, but we can talk more about it. But I had a blast. It was definitely one of the best experiences in aviation that I've ever had. The plane did great. There was not one hitch or glitch or problem in the entire, like everything just flowed and the plane was perfect and the weather was perfect and just everything happened. And it was one of those things where it's like, man, I love this. Like, this is exactly why we all make just an inconceivable amount of sacrifice, is to give yourself experiences like that. Now, I'm not knocking like the, $100 hamburgers, but, that's all great. But to really stretch out is a blast.
You need to do the big trips every once in a while.
Yes.
You absolutely do. And I try to schedule at least 1 or 2 a year. That's outside of my normal area.
Yeah.
Ted has been spreading his wings a little bit. I wanted to hear, he's been flying, both of y'all have been flying a hell of a lot more than me, but I do want to hear about what you've been up to, Ted.
Yeah, just real quick. I'm not sure how much of the trip I'm gonna share. I journaled a bunch of it, and I think that's where someone's gonna stay. But I finally got a chance to go fly and camp over the weekend. I did almost 9 hours of flying in 2 days, and hit about 10 new airports. None of these are Deltas. Most of them are too small to have even a room, on the airport. At least 2 of them in the county airport room building had an open 3-ring binder with a sign-up sheet for taking the crew car, with the key to the crew car just like right in the ring in the binder. Yeah. It's like, these are smaller places. You don't see anyone. You just grab the car and you go if you wanted it. And I was wearing my introvert shirt, so it was very perfect for that. But yeah, I went all the way up to the Canadian border. Then I came back down and went to Grand Coulee Dam. It's the largest energy producing dam in the U.S. by a factor of 2. I'd been there once before in my life, but it's got a great little campground. You fly into the airport, and instead of turning left into the kind of transient parking, you turn right and go down the hill in the grass in your plane. And it was there were some other campers there, but the other plane that was down there was a Cirrus, so it was like the plastic planes down below. So the Husky and the 150 were up in the paved parking, and us plastic planes were down in the grass. So so it was a cool trip. But I deliberately started the trip thinking, I want to stay a little bit lower than I normally do, and I want to go a little slower than I normally do. And I'm not talking by much. I was still 2,000 to 3,000 feet, but instead of just going up to 8,000 feet and cruising in 200 miles, I wanted to stay a little lower and closer, and throttled back. I had a gallons per hour setting that I was looking for, and
it's like 0.3, 0.4 gallons per hour,
3.5. But when you're down low, it's a little bit harder to hit that. So it's pulling back a little.
You could actively refine gas in your plane and pump it out to your wings at that rate.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. If I go any slower, I actually gain weight and fuel. Yeah. Have to land because I'm over capacity from not using enough fuel. Yeah. So, and we were talking a little bit about the Marfa trip before we started recording. And I said, it was actually a case where I took more risk by flying lower. And it's an interesting thought, right? I'm sitting there, and this is really rural. I'm lucky if I can crash the plane near a road. I'm not trying to land on a road, just crash somewhere that makes it convenient for a rescuer. And, so I really thought about that as I was doing the trip, but I also intentionally stayed, closer to highways, closer to county roads, whatever it happened to be. And again, it's not low, right? I'm not doing a cub at 500 feet or anything else. So,
yeah.
But, sort of thing that you think about. And
by the way, one thing about the Marfa experience I had is when we went down to Big Bend and we're flying around, there was only one other plane that we heard on the radio anywhere around there. It was a Bonanza, and that was the only plane around as far as we know. And then we got back, and then we went to this place to get the sandwich again. Mm-hmm. That's all I ate when I was there. And the people at the table next to us were the people that were in that plane.
Of course they were.
Right. And they were like, oh, I was like, yeah, we were up pretty high, and the guy who was the pilot, he knows the area really well. And they were doing, canyon flying and, all this kind of stuff that I'm too chicken to do.
Yeah.
At least in that kind of a place. But anyway, yeah, it was funny. It was just sort of like, it's such a, it's such a small place.
Yeah.
In terms of population, of course, the people at the next table at one of the only places that's open just got out of the plane too. So anyway, it's funny.
Yeah. Well, and I started with flight following, and I was only at 3,000 feet going through the gorge, and they said, if you're staying low, we're going to get rid of you. And it was a good reminder. It's like, oh yeah, there's another piece of risk, and also one of those things that's different depending where you are in the country, where it's like you only have 3,000 feet. We can't see you on radar. It just varies based on where you are. And you had that same experience, Brian, obviously.
Yeah.
Just being too low for that. But yeah, that was interesting. And, saw a couple other people, and one other person said, oh, are you collecting stamps? Like, yeah, we were on CTAF together, and never did see him, but obviously the only people that visit some of these airports are.
Was he in your mind?
He was in my. He could have been.
Is he in the room right now?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, it would have been fun to catch up, but yeah,
that's awesome.
So it was a good little trip. So almost 9 hours. Almost had to get fuel at one point, but can do 9 hours in the plane. So
rub it in.
Real quick, Ted, what are your? Do you know what your numbers are for the past, say, like 30 days?
Oh, it's pretty low, actually.
Okay.
Although I've got to say, I did cross 500 hours on this trip.
Oh, yeah.
Which was, that's what I was going to shout out on the achievement section of the podcast. But congratulations on that, Mark.
Yeah. It's been kind of a quiet summer for me. And I knew it was going to be, which is why this is a big deal. I was able to go camping. So last 90 days, I've got 46 hours. And half of those are in the last 30 days. So what are yours?
In the last 30, I have
Brian?
34.7 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is never going to happen again.
Yeah. Well, and reorder our sections here and mention, in part of that, actually I mentioned it earlier, about people getting to the point that they're out of currency for carrying passengers. And that's all fine, right? Like this, there's a whole variation between midlife pilots. We're not doing this for airlines. We're doing this based on our bank account and the amount of time we've got available. And it doesn't happen for, that's not the top priority for everyone. And that's fine.
People in the chat are confused as I was because Ben called you Mark. Ben, you said we're. I just thought, wait a minute.
I was going to actually make a comment, and it came out as Mark. So that was it. I was going to say that I've only got 40 hours in the last 30 days. So that's not too bad. But
I just thought somebody's having a stroke, whether it's either everybody in the chat or me or both.
Yeah. Again, I've got to give them something to give me a hard time about.
Oh, it's
What do you say we go ahead and hit the topic? It's not that we have to go too deep into it, but we had a listener, Javier T.
Which, hey, I've got to mention, this is Javi, who, of course, is a friend of AJ's because everybody's a friend of AJ's.
Yep.
Javi came out. He lives down by y'all in Atlanta.
He's here in Marietta, and
he came out to the Portland area.
757s and 767s for Delta.
Yeah. And he came out to the Portland area to get his tailwheel endorsement. And so I met him and another friend of his that's out here, and friends of AJ's all meeting together. And so he's got so many hours that it's, uncountable. But we had a great conversation, and
he's a really good dude.
Yeah.
He called me up and he said, I wonder how many your student pilots, maybe not so much, but when you kind of get into that killing zone time frame, how many pilots are really exercising their checklist, who have checklist discipline? And we had a little bit of chat about that, and I thought it'd be a good topic. I have a little over 1,000 hours in the Beast, and I still pull out a physical checklist for the run up. I don't pull it out for the engine start. I don't pull it out for certain things. The climb is 2 items. The cruise is 2 items. And I use flows for that. And I do back myself up, but it does make me wonder, the perception. I'm curious your perception, each of you, talking with other pilots. Do you think it's checklists are underutilized?
I can argue both sides of that one, right? I think there are people who are very devoted to checklists and don't use it in their memory at all. I think that's especially true of student pilots, which is great because it's so easy to get it wrong when you're still trying to learn how to do it. And on the other hand, you can overdo it, right? My problem is when a checklist gets too long, I'm less likely to follow it. So sometimes what I'm trying to do is simplify my checklist so that it's something I will do. Like my startup checklist is one that I sit there and I read through it. I review my pre-flight and I read and go through my startup checklist. That's one of the times that I physically use it. A lot of the others, once you've been in a plane for a while, you can get those pretty baked in.
Yeah. My cruise checklist is cowl flaps closed, throttle as desired, lean as desired.
Yeah.
That's literally it. Brian, are you a physical checklist guy or digital? What do you do?
It's interesting. So I'm definitely a physical checklist person. I've been through different phases. When I was a student, of course, you start off generally with what the school's giving you or whatever. And then, I didn't even use ForeFlight until the latter part of my training. So as soon as I got into using ForeFlight, then I thought, well, of course, I'll build, these checklists and then have some custom things that mention little details of things that maybe I'm forgetting sometimes, or I don't know, that are outside of the bounds of normal things, where it's like, oh, I keep forgetting to, close the window, or I don't know, whatever it is. I was trying to account for every little thing. Like, okay, now I'm going to make the most awesome custom checklist ever. And then all it takes is one time when your iPad overheats where you realize like, okay, this is not, I don't want to be in this business. And so I don't know, there's something about the tactile experience of holding the checklist and being able to sort of thumb through things and all of that. So I'm definitely a physical checklist person. A lot of people love ForeFlight checklists or EFB checklists, and I don't care, do whatever you want. But I will say that for me, the one thing I've been very conscious of in the latter stages of my training and ever since is really being conscious of, especially when you first get out there and you're just like, I'm on my own now, there's nobody looking over my shoulder. I really felt the need to give myself as many chances to catch failure or gaps as possible. And so I'm a big proponent of flow checks confirmed by checklists and not using the checklist as a to-do list like you very much tend to do, I think, when you're a student, which is fine. And I definitely grew out of that to, when you're on your own, how can I feign redundancy as much as possible? Because it's real easy just to kind of get into little bits of space where you're kind of not doing either. You know
That's
what I mean?
right.
And so that's where I think flows really come into handy. But we're all flying different things. We're all doing different things. But I'm flying a Cherokee 180, and it is so simple. There is nothing to this plane, There's just nothing going on. So the more complex it gets, great. But I'm just saying, my flows, I have, and we've talked about this a lot in the community, and a lot of people shared what their flows are and all that. But I start on the floor and, it's like trim is set for takeoff. The seat is secure, seat belt, doors closed and latched, breakers are all in, carpeets off, mixtures, and fuel pumps to go, lights, whatever. I just basically just go across. Checklists sometimes get you hunting and pecking, well, let me check this one thing over here and this over here. And the thing I like about the flow is it's actually based on I'm just going to check, I don't know, everything right now because there's only so many things.
That's right. I want to highlight, I got 2 points. Wendy, who's in our chat, says, I've spent a lot of time lately building my IFR checklist as I get closer to my check ride. Even just reviewing those as a study material has been helping my IFR training proficiency. And I couldn't agree with you more. I had specifically built IFR checklist, and it really did help cement a lot of the concepts behind IFR flying. The other aspect is when I was training for commercial, and I was flying a 172, and I would argue that's just as simple as a Cherokee. It's certainly more simple than mine. But I can tell you, just from a comfort level, and Nathan Ballard will attest to this, I would hold that checklist up and I would go through everything because I wasn't familiar with that airplane.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And the other aspect of it that I think even for experienced pilots is if you put your plane in annual and it's there for 2 months and you haven't flown, I'm going to pull the checklist on every task of everything. For me, it's as soon as I've done the walk around.
Yes.
That's my flow. Then I back it up.
Yeah.
I'll start it. I'll go to the run up area and then I'll go through the run up checklist. And then the rest of it are flows. So I think there's a time and a place to really be super disciplined and really catching things. And if you're flying 20 hours a week in the same airplane, I'm not suggesting that we get lazy, but flows are a perfectly acceptable way. And I even back it up with a checklist every once in a while. Even in cruise, there's 3 items. Did I forget something? Oh yeah, flaps, cow flaps. If I didn't close them, it's not the end of the world. But I'm going to pick up 2 or 3 knots maybe. So it's an interesting discussion. My point, in my opinion, that everybody kind of has their own way, and it's not necessarily that anybody's right or wrong.
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of get your perspectives on that.
I want to, Peter, our friend, Peter Tully, said, Ted, assume you have to do a run up on the Rotax. And yes, there is a run up. It's simple, but it's similar. You have effectively a MEG check. It's a check your computer lanes check. But, so my run up is, are the doors locked, controls free, correct? And do the lane check. And that's the really simple, quick run up test. If I flew into 8 airports in a day, which I did, I'll check it 8 times. And I'm not going to assume that all the lanes worked just because they did last time. So, those still exist. It is a lot simpler, right? I don't have to worry about mixture. And, some of those things go away. And I really appreciate that. I want very simple checklists. I want there to only be a few ways that I can kill myself. And the fewer of those, the better. But that's part of why I want a simple checklist is I don't want to put things on there that won't kill me. So I don't have GoPros on there, for instance.
Right.
That to me, that's too long of a checklist. Just give me the super basics. I can't remember who it was. I read a book from an old pilot once, and his thing was, you're just flying GA. There's only 4 things that you can do in the plane. And his point was that about the length of the checklist. So
yeah,
I'm a fan of short checklists as I repeated.
I think another thing too is that for instance, when you're doing flights like what you did recently, Ted, or what I did, where it's 8 hours of flying in a day, or whatever, 1,000 miles and all these different airports and all of that, it's hard to gauge how fatigue is affecting you.
Yeah.
And I find myself doing extra reads of the checklist, as time goes on, and as we're starting to wear a little bit, it's a way to put to rest anything in the back of my mind that is that voice. It's like, I guess my point is you can do a checklist twice. You can do 2 flows, two readings of the same checklist, then go back and check it again. Like, you can do whatever, there's going to be different points where you maybe get value out of triple checking things, because you're aware that you're kind of pushing yourself on time a little bit or whatever. So, sometimes it's, you're to your point, Ben, it's, if you got 1,000 hours in the same plane, you've been flying 20 hours this week in that plane. It's a dance though, right? You don't want to have that can build complacency. But doesn't mean skip things, No. I do a run up every single time. I do.
I absolutely do.
There's certain things that no matter what happens, I do it every single time. And definitely with pre-flight, I do, I make sure I start at the baggage door. I go all the way around the plane, make sure I end at the baggage door. Then I pull out the checklist, and then I go and walk. I turn my back to the plane and walk 20 or 30 feet out and turn around and just look at the symmetry of the plane. And is there anything off from because I want to make sure I'm not doing sort of forest for the trees with the plane. When you're so close to it, sometimes you can miss little things, like for you, Ben, chocks, right? I mean, it's.
Yes. Wait a minute. That's me and AJ. You can't leave AJ out of this one.
Yes. Adam V mentioned triple checking your gears down. And that's one thing I was just thinking that I was going to say was a lot of the things that I think about is basically in the way of, it's probably good that I don't fly, retractable gear. I try to think about things in that way though, right? Which is, when I'm coming in, I'm doing effectively my GUMPS check. Have I actually done it fully? Let me do it again while I'm in the pattern, right? The ones that have that I'm more likely to get distracted and forget, I always kind of think about that, like, would this result in a gear up landing if I was flying a retractable and this happened?
Oh, I'm definitely going to have a gear up the first time I fly a retractable.
Yeah,
I am.
So I already know it. Stay out of the right seat when flying with Brian the first time.
I know it because I've been, my approach has been to address the gear. Having never flown a retractable, I'm still saying gear. I always say undercarriage is welded.
Yep.
Right. I'm going to be in an Aero one day or something, and I'm just going to go undercarriage is welded.
Yeah.
No, but that's to the point of what Aero Grizzly's saying here, I think, which is really great, which is to maintain the intentionality of what you're doing. Don't just go through it and just check. You really have to think about what it is you're looking at. Whether by checklist or by flow, you need to be thinking about normal indications, abnormal indications. Really, sometimes people, I think, just get into the carousel ritual of just doing it. A lot of people have. I agree with the put your hands on it, or we're not CFIs. Go find your CFI, figure out the best way to manage your checklist and your flows, and make sure you cover yourselves.
2 really quick points, and I think it's important that BitShifter made the comment, if you haven't forgotten your chocks, are you even a pilot?
Yes.
I couldn't agree with that comment anymore. And the other one you had pulled up there, make sure you know why you're doing the step. Why are you doing the mag check? Can you run it on, is it operating the proper way? Yeah,
that was Aero Grizzly saying something to point out with the checklist. Why are you doing it? Why are you doing a meg check? What strange behavior? What are the causes? Right. And it's a great reminder on all of that. It's also, I was thinking about this again with the gear up landing. Well, we may shout another comment there, but that if you read people that have done gear up landings, it's always they ignored the buzzer that was going off because they were doing a no flaps landing. And so the buzzer going off was to be expected. And that's how they missed the gear. Things like that. When there is an alert, alarm, whatever it is, I try to acknowledge it and talk about why I am ignoring it. So, if you're in a plane that says, terrain pull up, don't just ignore it. say, that's going off because I'm flying near a cliff on my base.
Right.
I expect that, right? I don't want to be in the habit of ignoring that. So anyway, and it's also why the PTS changed to the ACS on student pilots flying with words are hard here, with the stall alarm going.
Right.
So the PTS was basically get used to flying with that stall alarm going off. And the ACS is like, why don't you fly slightly so it's not going off?
Yeah.
And to not be in the habit of flying in that dangerous area. Don't learn a behavior that is something you don't want to be doing normally. So, yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
To wrap it up, I do want to make a couple of points. In the CFI world, they talk about the law of primacy a lot. It's what you learned earlier in your pilot journey. And I will tell you, I don't feel like I had very good checklist discipline when I was going through training. And it took me a long time to build that back into the fold. So if you are a student pilot out there, be very intentional, be disciplined in your checklists. It will serve you a long way. It'll serve you well for a long period of time.
Especially on your check ride.
Yeah, especially on your check ride. So it's, I think that's one of the main takeaways. And then as you mentioned earlier, Brian, as you build more experience, you'll start building flows and backing it up with checklists. But, there's a lot of YouTubers out there that we watch that are very, very good about checklist discipline, and it inspires me. So, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah. And come up with your own technique behind it.
Yeah.
And why.
Lastly, I want to say about flows specifically. I think that having really good flows brings you closer to the machine. It creates a quick little tangent. The writer William Burroughs had this concept of do easy, and it's this idea of doing everything, even if it's insignificant, with great intentionality and purpose and kind of a grace. And as if you treat every, if you're an artist, right? Like even just the way you pick up your pencil or put it back down, or just the way that you do everything. A guy I know who's an artist, that he grew up as a short order cook. He said that he was exercising these principles as a short order cook. It's like the way that he pulled the ticket, the way that he plated everything. Like he just, even though it seemed like less than significant, what he did was he assigned more significance to the small acts of how, like what you're doing with your hands, how you're controlling the controls, how you're doing your flows, how you're speaking, how you're thinking. Everything is very intentional. I think that flows, at least for me, bring me closer to the machine. I definitely see other pilots, sometimes, really rough with the throttle, or, just kind of jerky with things, or kind of, this and that and the other. So I also kind of think that flows bring you closer to this harmony with the machine that gives you maybe a better chance at being safe and under control as well.
Yeah, I agree, where a checklist can be between you and the machine, and a flow lets you actually focus on the plane in that case, instead of focusing on the checklist.
Oh yeah. And that's reminds me of one other thing. Jason Miller always says this, which I think is great. Hold the checklist up.
Yeah.
Don't, especially for IFR, right, Ben? You don't want to put your head straight down. You want to keep checklists up at eye level, whether you're looking outside or whether you're trying to keep your brain from scrambling.
That's right.
And Brian has a video called Do Easy, and we have a long list of show notes from tonight. I'll make sure that's linked in there.
Oh, yes.
Very good. Ted, we've got somebody, an unexpected announcement for the community spotlight.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've got a new user, Tunis04, said, "Hello, midlife student pilot here. Been listening for about a month. First time catching the live broadcast. Just completed my first solo cross country today. Very excited to join the community."
Yeah.
That's a great
so huge.
moment.
That's such a big moment. Oh, man. That was just, I get chills just thinking about how cool that was.
There's two things that kind of happen at the same time on that. The first is, this is so nice. I can take a breath. Like, I'm not just going from one maneuver to the next, having a CFI sitting next to me with the dollar running the whole time. The other thought at the same time is, I must be missing something.
Yeah.
The engine's about to die. I'm going to find a field every 100 yards apart to make sure I don't miss it.
Yeah.
So it's both that crippling anxiety and that relax at the same time.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Tunis.
Yeah.
And I've said it on, I've made the comment to multiple people on the Student Pilots Over 50 in the Facebook group. That to me is put a bigger smile on my face than the first solo.
Yeah.
Just there was a higher level of accomplishment, it felt like to me when I was going through it personally. So well done, sir.
It's the first time you experience why you're even doing all this.
That's exactly
Yes.
right. That's
Listen
exactly
to what the flying we've been talking about, right? They're cross countries. That's the fun in it. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's been a great chat about checklists.
Yeah.
Do it, flows, checklist, whatever works for you. Don't forget, reach out to us, midlifepilotpodcast.com, and send us your feedback. Send us a poem. I don't care. Just engage with us. Join us on Patreon. There is so much good content in there. We're your friends, your aviation friends who we can bounce stuff off of. We're anxiously awaiting to hear from you. So anything else, gentlemen, for the good of the order?
No, man. Just appreciate you guys. Glad to be back.
Yeah.
Glad to have you back. The countdown begins for the 100th. Looking forward to it. Very lively chat tonight. A lot of folks in there. We really appreciate all of y'all joining us. Catch us next Monday night. We'll figure out what we're going to talk about and let you know what that is someday soon. But at the moment, we don't know. So anyway, signing off, episode 93 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. Good night, everybody.